tens of thousands of people joined the Labour Party to support, and all you've done is feed into the Tory ideology of not supporting strikes, of carrying on with the privatisation of our health service. You're doing everything to feed into a Tory victory, because we may as well have a Tory if we have a person like you.
Hello.
It's an honour to be on the same Zoom as you. How have you kept up with the? I mean, you must have been getting lots of messages and things on social media. What is it? Just ringing all the time? Your phone?
It's I've had no sleep. Honest to God, the adrenaline is just pumping through my veins. There's memes, there's phone calls, there's messages, there's texts, there's like people were obviously the mainstream media are doing nothing, but well, except the Independent. But you know, there's lots of social media outlets wanting to do interviews, and it's just do you know what? I'm going to be serious straight away. It really has tapped into, hasn't it? I mean, have you seen how many views it's had? It's immense. It's 1.6 million just on the Merseyside pensioners in less than 24 hours. And of course, then there's like Aaron Bastani did his own one, and that it's got, I don't know, last time I looked, 650,000. You know, I mean, you come across other streams of, 30,000 or 25,000, and that's without looking at Facebook. So it really shows that there's been this big vacuum where, like, the Parliamentary Labour Party is saying not a word against Starmer, not a word. The Socialist Campaign Group, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. The membership of the Labour Party are frightened to say a word because they'll get expelled. They're all looking over their shoulders and watching what they're saying. And councillors, my God, all the councillors, not all, are mostly beaten into submission. And hardly anybody's really exposed Starmer, what he is. The press aren't. He's the darling of the establishment. They just want to slide him in and hope people notice, he's just a tidier version of Boris Johnson. So it's amazing that people are really, quite sincere when they write to me in these lovely long messages saying, Audrey, thanks so much, or thanks, fantastic, the Merseyside pensioners are saying this. It's everything we want to say to them. And it's quite moving, to be honest with you, Crispin. It really is. It's seriously sincere, and a real feeling of gratitude that thank goodness somebody's opened the floodgates and exposed him for what he is.
Yeah. So you're kind of humbled by it, really, as well as it's an emotional response from other people that's come back to you because you've thought about the gravity of what actually happened. I mean, it might seem a bit mundane. It kind of seemed maybe a bit mundane at the time you're in a cafe. Can you tell us what the situation was? How you actually found him to be in this place?
Well,
was that a secret?
I had my little informers, and I knew he was going to be there. I was just afraid he would get alerted to that fact and change the venue. I mean, it is just down the street. It's one of my regulars. I was in there the night before, and I already knew when I went for a meal the night before. I already knew that he was coming. So yeah, I knew, and we had to be very careful on social media. So we just sort of contacted, some of the activists, and I mean, to be honest, a lot of people got left out, who should have been there really. But we just wanted, a really good token of people outside, and they were outside with all the, NHS, the Women's Hospital, banners and all the rest of it. A real good group of pensioners. They're all pensioners, but activists in various organisations themselves, independent of the MPA. So they were outside. So it was like cornered. And we were inside having a glass of wine and a few little bites to eat. And
he came in after you were already in. You were already there?
I was there from 11, about 11:15, yeah. I was then, got some work to do. So I sat with my iPad and waited for him to come in. And that was the only nervousness I felt, because I thought, this isn't going to work. Somebody's going to see somebody, because, the odd activist was wandering around, which I didn't want them to do. I wanted them to hide in the crack. The crack, the crack. If you haven't been to the crack, it's John Lennon's pub, pub where John Lennon used to always, from the beat. Yeah. And it's just round the corner from this restaurant. So I said, if you're all hiding in the crack, they won't be alerted to the fact that there's going to be a showdown. So Phil and Haz and Kevin Bean, they are three of the, they're expelled, aren't they? One's being expelled for being a communist and the others are expelled for whatever they made up now, Phil and Haz. So we were in the restaurant and you come in and it was really daft because they faced him. He was facing the window. And of course, I just pressed go on my phone and the people who were in the crack all ran and just surrounded the window. Well, he's like, I could see he was getting a bit alarmed. So I just went, now we've got to do it now. So we just jumped up. Dylan had the cameras. And really wanted to make sure that he had, an unwelcome in Liverpool. And I mean, I know it's not like just us, the activists. It really isn't. Even if it was just for the sake of that newspaper that, he writes in. We don't even like to say the word in Liverpool. We don't like to say the Sun newspaper. It's not even a newspaper. So even for that alone, for ordinary people, I wanted to say it because Hillsborough's hurt us. That paper, when we were down, when we were grieving, when we were brokenhearted, the things they said about us, and that man, the leader of the Labour Party, thinks it's okay to write columns, for that paper. It was just too much, really.
But wasn't the other thing? Sorry to interrupt, but he was on Radio Merseyside later on after he met you, and he justified it by saying that he worked alongside the victims of Hillsborough, and that he thought that writing in the Sun was the best way to spread his message, whatever that message is. And I just thought. But he said on the hustings in Liverpool that he wouldn't write for the Sun, didn't he? He actually said that as a thing on a stage. So he was dishonest, wasn't he, when he said that? Well,
he was being a politician in one of the most disgusting. He used a tactic of, and he said afterwards during this campaign, and most people just thought, oh, he's okay. He's not going to speak to the Sun because he knows what we feel about the Sun. But what he said afterwards during this campaign, which he
so he only during the campaign, he was like, he has a little clause that we didn't think like us in small writing.
Yeah, it's like, hang on here, Liverpudlians, you didn't read the small print. And I'm not being funny, we're not stupid. We know it was a con. It was deceit. It was deceit. He didn't think we'd. He put that in to sort of cover himself. But we do know he's a liar, because what he said was that he was Jeremy Corbyn. The things he said about Jeremy Corbyn, the things he said about the 10 pledges, were. I mean, you could see it in his eyes when I was speaking to him, when I was saying to him, look. You said you'd stand by the 10 pledges. And we know, everybody knows, it's not rocket science. He's let every one of them, he's ditched every one of those those pledges, but they were like a pale version of our manifesto. So a lot of people were fooled. I mean, I wasn't, but a lot of people were fooled that he was going to be on the left. He also said he was going to unite the party. And everyone's thinking, oh, that's fabulous. And what has he done? He's conducted the most vindictive, vicious witch hunt, you know, in any organisation. Do you know what? They make the American trials, the McCarthyite trials, look fair, because at least with the McCarthyite trials, you had a right to reply. And you don't with well, you've seen the Ford report, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, just going back a bit to when you was talking to him, most of the, I mean, I personally was struck by how calm and also how you were so level-headed you were when you were saying everything, and you weren't too long about anything. You said there were a few points you wanted to make, and you made them in a very concise way. So you mentioned Hillsborough, you mentioned the purge, you mentioned the commitment to policy and supporting Corbyn, and they were very quickly made, so that it was like you weren't being over. You just did it so perfectly, but there's a little bit of nerves in your voice. I could tell. Was there a bit of nerves?
Not at all. No, there was a little bit of emotion.
That's what it was. Something wasn't. You weren't quite as you are talking now. You were kind of a bit more. It was like you really wanted to. It's like you really wanted to say this thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
like
was.
You've been on your mind a long time.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought he'd got away with. He'd got, you know, the way Corbyn was treated, and that this man, and even Boris Johnson's been called a liar. And I thought, who have we got to? You know, it's no use sort of being excited about having an election when you've only got Keir Starmer to replace whoever the Tory leader is. And that's the debate that it started on Twitter and everywhere, is that do you keep your mouth shut and not criticise Keir Starmer because we need to get rid of the Tories? And that was what I was passionate about. I really wanted to say a lot of other things, and the emotion in my voice was hopefully that, you know, that I wanted to be forceful. I didn't want to shout and carry on. I wanted to hammer home how the responsibility to the working class, which is what I finished off with. I wanted to really hammer home that he's the leader of the Labour Party and how disgusting he'd been and how dishonest. I actually said to him he was dishonest and that they were lies. And I didn't say it lightly. I said it with genuine sincerity and disappointment that we've been betrayed. And I wanted to say, by the way, I wanted to finish with victory to the RMT and Palestine and Stand by Palestine. And of course, I was started to get pushed around a bit then by that guy who was like a heavy of Keir Starmer's, which was absolutely out of order. You know, he was pushing his body up against me. At times he had his arms across my, his body was pushing.
I mean, there was no one with you that was intimidated of any kind of physical threat to Starmer. So this physical kind of a treatment of you was totally uncalled for, wasn't it?
Well, you know, they were frozen, and Starmer and Steve Rotherham, they were like, oh, what do we do now? What do we do now? And all that they had in front of them was an old woman who's, you know, a Labour Party member, and not shouting. And that's why I wanted to be calm, not shouting, not causing a disturbance, just talking to the leader of the Labour Party. And they were absolutely panicked. They were looking round to see what the heavy guys were going to do. They were like appealing to them with their eyes, help. I mean, it was ridiculous. They didn't know how to deal with it. Instead of just saying, I don't know, addressing the questions. But no, he was absolutely useless. And I think the physicality of that man was completely out of order. And I might be speaking to somebody about that, to be honest with you, legally, because it shouldn't have happened. And Starmer, if that's Starmer's attitude, or we know it is to shut us all up. It was very manifested in the way he dealt with me.
Now, I've been thinking as well that, you know, he's going to have this happen more frequently. He's going to, do you think that, because what he's done is there's all these bureaucrats sending out expulsion, suspension letters with no name, nameless individuals giving threats and then sanctioning people in the party. And how, I mean, for me, I've been expelled. I mean, I feel like if I had an opportunity to speak to Starmer, I'd want to say my piece.
Yeah. Because
he's done this tactic of trying to silence people with these kind of horrible methods. Do you think it's likely that what you've done will actually encourage other people to do the same? Do you think that he might actually find it really difficult now to go anywhere?
I think I hope it opens the floodgates, because it does, you know, people do, you know, it's like a trigger, isn't it? If people say, my God, that was fab, and they all have. And what I want to say, and some people are writing on Twitter what they want to say to him, you know. But the only thing I'd say is what made this episode so good is we had two fabulous filmmakers there who made a brilliant film out of it. I mean, there is stuff cut out because there was other stuff I said. I tried to talk about the anti-Semitism. I said a bit about IPSO and suing the Jewish Chronicle. I said a few other things that, you know, we had to clip out to make it short enough to tweet and all the rest of it. But you do need to get, you know, to get the thing recorded, because it didn't happen unless you've recorded it, really. So that needs to be said, that it was the making of that film and being able to put it out there straight away, which was great. But yeah, I think there could be from that. I hope it inspires people, because people are fuming, really are fuming. You know, can you imagine people had the wages frozen, people are, you know, being lost people with the pandemic, and he's stood there. He's actually, you know, he was telling kids to go back to school. Do you remember all that? They voted against the free dinners for the kids, and, you know, or put it this way, and, you know, abstained and things like this. I mean, you know, the war. He's disciplined people, the MPs, over making a statement on war. I mean, he's just a Stalinist. I mean, really, they are Stalinist tactics from the leader of any party, just to try to keep control. And I just hope the people are brave enough to just speak out. I mean, I'm still suspended. You know, I'm still suspended. I don't know if this is the second or third time I'm suspended, and they never deal with my suspension. There's no dealing, no. You know, I just answer the letter and threaten them. I mean, I threatened them last time with, you know, I wanted £1,500 from them, you know, for breach of data. And because it ends up in Lee Harpin's hands, doesn't it? And he does it from the Jewish Chronicle, who I've already sued once and won. So I've just sent one yesterday as well. Oh, no, it's gone off this morning. Sorry. It's gone off this morning to the Labour Party, you know, the governance thing, because they won't. There's no process. We know what the Ford report said about them. And they're exposed for being undemocratic, having no process. And they've just absolutely, you know, all they're doing is stopping people from taking part, taking the subs off them, and intimidating them and stopping them from taking part. I can't hold a position. I can't go to a meeting. And yet it's all nonsense, the claims against me. And have you seen that Lee Harpin today is saying I've been expelled in December 20?
Yeah, I saw, yeah. So he's wrong. And what will you be thinking of writing to him and again, or is that something I shouldn't ask?
The lawyer, and I've also had another lawyer offer quite a big name, to do, and they're both doing it pro bono for me. So watch this space.
Wow.
So I really.
So you've wound them up. You've wound up a lot of people. What you did there, but you've inspired other people, and you've given people a laugh, and also you've made people think that they're not alone, that they're not the only person thinking this. It's a fantastic boost. On a day when he went up there with Rachel Reeves, I'm not sure was she in Liverpool or wherever, but yesterday they were saying that they're scrapping any commitment to public ownership of any kind. What do you think about that? Because to me, that's like, isn't that the Labour Party's identity, really?
Raison d'etre, is to, I mean, there's certain things that we need for society to function, and one is, all the services, the whole idea, remember Clause 4 disappeared under Blair, it's all to do with who owns. I mean, we don't want to nationalise everything, but we do want to nationalise the things that make society work, electricity and gas and water and communications and transport. And to a great degree, the housing programmes should be national housing places, the council houses and so on. So there's a whole raft of things that we need to function as society that shouldn't be in the hands of profiteers. And the health service, absolutely, the health service, he's sat back while where's he been to the forefront of fighting to protect the health service as it's collapsed around us? It's absolutely appalling. And they're absolutely moving further and further and further away and further towards the Tories, further away from the interests of ordinary working people who need these things, need to be able to heat their homes and, have clean water and communicate. I mean, people, 20% of people haven't got access to, to the broadband and all the rest of it and computers. So you've got whole sections of society are being deprived of basic needs. And unless we own those things, unless a party, and let's face it, it's not going to be the Labour Party, is it? It's not going to be the Labour Party because they're abandoning all socialist principles and they're just becoming a second 11. I mean, my mother used to say it. My mother died many, many decades ago. And she used to say it then that a lot of the Labour Party were the second 11. They were never radical enough for my mother years ago. And they say it, if she could see what was going on today, absolutely ditching every little whisper of anything that's vaguely on the left. And we're called the extremists, aren't we? We're called the extremists. Unbelievable. But it's great yesterday and today, because that video, and it wasn't me. I always say this, and it is true, all right, I was the person in the film, but it was our team of the pensioners of being outside, pensioners giving you the steel to go out and do it, the filmmakers being there, the comrades being there, and knowing that a lot of people, that most people in Liverpool are like behind you. So it's great being part of a city that is still, despite all the right-wingers and the saboteurs, there's still a massive movement of people who want a fairer world and aren't fooled by the Starmers of the world. And they only need someone to speak up. And we can all be that person. It doesn't have to be me. It can be everybody. And it was the Merseyside pensioners who did this as a team of people who've been around and been fighting all their lives, So you can't beat that. You can't argue with that, can you, Kristen?